So my name's Inge Thomson, and I'm talking with...
And I'm Deirdre Nelson. And we're going to have a chat today about our project we've done called Sleeping Starfish, which originated with a project with Cape Farewell and curated by Ruth Little in the Sea Change project, which was funded by Creative Scotland.
Yeah. So we met each other on a boat, first of all, didn't we, Deirdre?
Yes, yeah.
Going up to Fair Isle. And that was a absolutely amazing experience where a group of artists and scientists literally went out in a boat together and banged heads together and spoke about all manner of things. And then the trip kind of culminated on Fair Isle, didn't it? And we got off and we spoke a lot about the happenings on Fair Isle at the time. The island was in the middle of a bid for to gain marine protected status, which actually Cape Farewell ended up being what's the word for it? Like a really good connector, and kind of helped us to achieve that status eventually. So that was a very positive outcome.
And then
so then Deirdre and I went on to do a few other bits and bobs together, didn't we, Deirdre?
Yes, so I had come up to Fair Isle after the boat trip, and I think it was when you were launching the album, or it was the first time that you'd played the album in the local village hall.
Yes, this was the Fish in Hands project, which was a musical project to run alongside the campaign. So I made an album and we toured it with several musicians and some other. So Deirdre, you came as well. There was a couple of other people that had been on the Cape Farewell expedition that came to the island too, and Ruth Little. And I guess we'd been just talking about how we could move into the future and continue doing collaborative things, I guess. So that was how this project was born.
Yeah, and then I remember hearing from you about your grandfather who made spinning wheels. So when I went to Fair Isle, I was really keen to meet him, and your nanny as well. And I was amazed at his homemade spinning wheels and the wool, the finest wool. So then I thought maybe we should do some project that celebrated them, or the generations of your family actually from Fair Isle who are creators and makers and musicians.
Yeah, no, that's right. So we ended up spending quite a bit of time on Fair Isle because you came up again and spent some time spinning with Dad, my grandfather, and discussing with my granny, who I called Nanny, her knitting and her knitting patterns, various stories, and just the history of the knitting on the island. And when we were there, we did a lot of things, and we took hydrophone recordings from the rock pools, and I did a lot of field recordings of the knitting machines and sounds of people knitting, and that was really where the sort of creative parts were born. So yeah, I think we both started coming together with bits of material because you started knitting the data from the rise and fall of the kittiwake populations on the Isle. So you started making this graphic data knitted, and quite painstaking work. But and then over the course of a while,
I was amazed at the I think when I got to Fair Isle, how much counting goes on in Fair Isle. People were I stayed in the bird observatory, and people were either counting birds, counting insects, like you say, when we went out tide pooling, and we were documenting the insects, but also the counting of stitches. And I realized that the two things were interdependent, because if the birds didn't come to the island, then the knitters wouldn't get an income for their work. So I think that was something that brought the two lots of things together. It was trying to create something that told those stories.
Yes, definitely. The sort of data gathering and the sort of counting of all these things that happened and occur in the natural world, and that being connected as well, as you say, with the sort of human nature on the island and its survival. And actually the project got its name sleeping starfish, because just maybe a year or so before, one of our young residents, Henry Heinemann, had discovered a little cushion starfish called the Asterina phylactica, and it had, I think the closest record of it had been somewhere in the south of England, somewhere in Kent or somewhere, I can't remember exactly. So it had really, it had migrated such a distance to end up living on Fair Isle. And then over the space of the next couple of years, there were sightings up the island so it was thriving, spreading and thriving. And I guess at the time we'd been bombarded with images of migrants, and it was like this terrible air of xenophobia sort of just coming out about these refugees and asylum seekers, and they're not, you know, not welcome and all this. And when you get absolutely bombarded with that every cell in my body is going, but you know, nature has always moved to where it hopes that its offspring, its children, will thrive. You know, that's been the case forever. You know, so this, for me, that the story of that little starfish ending up on Fair Isle and thriving was really kind of poignant to what was going on, you know, with the actual political climate.
And also how welcoming, I think, that Fair Isle is to visitors, because, you know, I came to Fair Isle and I was made feel so welcome there, and I felt very much part of the families that were there. And for such a small island, I think it's, you know, Scotland or some of the Northern Islands get a reputation sometimes for, you know, wanting just locals, and I didn't feel that at all, or I've never felt that about Fair Isle or Shetland, is that
No.
it's a place that welcomes people and welcomes new things. And
well, those islands, they thrive on people, on having people coming through, and Fair Isle wouldn't survive if it wasn't for the visitors and for the tourists and for the bird people that come. You know, it's absolutely not just necessary, it's essential to the well-being of the island. So yeah.
And I was just remembering the other little thing to do with sleeping, you know, the title Sleeping Starfish, because you had told me, and that, I think that was something that stuck in my mind about Nana falling asleep knitting. And there was a story that she'd fallen asleep but kept on knitting while she was asleep. So that I was really quite excited about that idea, because there's something about knitting where you go into automatic pilot and you do it. And particularly for someone like your granny, she, like, it was in her bones to knit. It was like a part of her body to knit, and just the idea of her falling asleep. And we looked at different things like sleeping rhythms, and I'm just remembering a lot of these things now. But and you know, I think just the whole idea of how she spoke about knitting and how it was, I'm trying to remember her phrase, was it's art and then maths and then knitting, or was it maths then art?
Maths,
knitting?
I think it was maths first and then art and then knitting, wasn't it? I think
and that,
so.
you know, again, that stuck in my mind about, you know, the counting data and the idea of that. And I suppose I'm just thinking about our relation to the drawing exhibition that Amanda Game has curated, that, you know, I think your Nana's books are an amazing, they're like sketchbooks, and they have, you know, all her marks and her hand marks of when she made patterns, and patterns that are very unique to her. And it's, I suppose it's a very unique hand in drawing, and they are like sketchbooks. They're absolutely beautiful, and those inspired us as well.
Yeah, they don't feel like there's any kind of expectation that other people would be looking at them, except for when she passed it around the family to go and knit something, or if anybody else maybe was just looking for a particular pattern or something, that she would refer to it. So as a resource, it was purely a very personal resource.
Yeah.
So, but also, as you say, her actual hand itself, her writing is so beautiful, and everything was, just really, a work of art in itself.
And
so
also, it was a working piece, you know, like it was taped together, and it was ripped, and it was, there was water stains on it, and they added
Yeah.
to the mark making. So it's a beautiful sketchbook, and some of those examples or prints of those are in the exhibition. The book is too precious to take off the island, so we had to leave it there.